I've worked in the NHS since 2004, and I think I'm increasingly realising that actually to affect change in the NHS you need to have a really good quality leadership. And I think the staff that work in the NHS are mostly incredibly committed, and there are some really fantastic ideas out there. But I think it's really important to be able to have the skills in leadership to be able to drive some of those ideas forward to affect real positive change.
The leadership course looked like it could offer a platform and an educational experience for me so that I could take the skills that I have as a psychologist and use them to change more than one person at once. So cultures, the ways in which organisations do things, influence groups of people, make change happen on a wider scale.
I was in a leadership role, but I'd never had any particular training or support in how to do that. I felt like I always just tried to work out, looked at what other people, how they did that, and there seemed to be things that didn't work in the settings that I was working in that I didn't have any answers to. So when I saw this opportunity, I thought, you know, that's an opportunity to actually learn something, to learn how to be different, how to tackle the sort of issues that I was coming up against.
I'd had a go, you know, for a short time being department lead, and it didn't work out well at all. So to some extent I really wanted to know, well, how is it done? How, you know, I want to make things better. I don't want to just hide in the clinic. It's good, it's useful to see patients and help them, and it's nice as a patient to say thank you very much. But actually that's not quite enough, at least not for me. There's better ways of doing things. So that's what I wanted to do, learn something about how to make things happen.
I kind of realised how hard it is to really change anything, even if you've sort of got a group of people that want to change things. Sort of some of the, particularly the service improvement tools, you actually need to really understand sort of how to make best use of them and how to kind of disseminate the information about what's going on. And I think having a sort of a brief introduction to it often isn't enough. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get more training on how to do it properly.
I think partly it was because of a challenge of taking myself outside of comfort zones, and partly because I wanted to develop things in a new way, and a leadership course was a good platform to learn about these new ways of doing things.
When I was just starting to look for opportunities to do leadership courses, and obviously this one looked particularly exciting because it had the opportunity to look at the theoretical side of leadership, but also the practical side with the King's Fund modules as well. So it just seemed like a really good opportunity to actually learn on both of those fronts, but also bring that learning back into the workplace.
I think this one because it was multidisciplinary. And it wasn't uni-professional, firstly. And I'm very keen to learn about other professionals and their viewpoints and their way that they do things.
I think it was because there was a mix of professionals, so there was nurses, doctors, psychologists, physiotherapists, so the opportunity to meet other professionals and work alongside them, which I think is really important in the NHS at the moment.
From what I'd heard about it, I liked the idea that it wasn't about going into a classroom and learning about leadership models, it was actually about learning how to do something and to experience that.
It has completely changed me as a person. I've got a completely different view of the world. That's not just at work, that's at home and family life as well, because I can't see how this this course wasn't necessarily, I didn't see this course once I got into it as being about the work side of me. It was about me entirely, and I think I wasn't prepared for that at the beginning. I didn't realise that was going to happen.
I had this idea of a leader being a very strong individual person who'd be at the front and kind of telling people what to do, you know, very sort of dictatorial. And I was almost not sure if that's what I wanted to do. You know, it's almost like a way, do I really want to be a leader? Is that really for me? Or will I find out through this course that actually it's something that I maybe think I shouldn't really be doing, be a leader? And I think through the course, I've developed a different view of what leadership is, and I feel differently about leadership.
I've done some pretty big training courses before. The most impactful was a 3-year doctoral degree in clinical psychology training, in the sense that it was my everyday. I lived it and breathed it. I have to say, I think this leadership course has had an even bigger impact.
I'm a bit more confident. I'm a bit more comfortable with who I am.
The bit that I think about on a day-to-day basis is just understanding that different people work in different ways, and actually it's really important to think about what I'm thinking and what I'm asking other people to do, because they might not be thinking about it in the same way I do. So I think what I've really appreciated is just a much better understanding of how to work with other people.
Through doing the personality stuff, I've just learned a lot about how I am and feel more that how I am is okay. Because I always think, oh, I should be more competitive or more challenging or something like that. But actually, I find that now I think I do want to develop a bit more, but I understand more about why I am how I am.
I have had feedback from friends and family that positive feedback that I've blossomed in many ways, and I've also had some constructive feedback from colleagues that I'm better at managing some of the bits of me that can be not that easy to be around. So, for instance, I'm quite short on patience. And I think I'm much better at managing that than I used to be.
Not only have I learnt about myself, I've learnt about my impact on others, and I've learnt through the MBTI that the type of person that I am genuinely connected with people. So when people face change and they get anxious about the change, I'm part of that because I feel that I'm part of them. And I think being a leader and learning things that are happening in the workplace, which people don't know about, the frontline staff don't know about, but I do, really challenged me, really made me think about how am I going to maintain a relationship with these people that I work with, who are my friends. We talk about football every week, things like that, and yet I've got information that I know is going to affect them and their livelihoods, but I can't tell anybody that. I found that really, really difficult.
To rediscover an emotional side of me has been great, and it is a part of me that I haven't used and I should use, and I will use more, I guess.
I think I tended to just want to work with people who agreed with me or who worked well with me. Now I tend to think actually those people that really challenge me are often the ones that they often help to progress things much more, and so that feels like a very positive thing, that I feel much more comfortable in really challenging environments now.
I think I've become more confident in what I'm doing and at work, in dealing with different people, the way I act and behave in my team at work is very different. I'm hoping that I'm being more collaborative, more supportive with other people, trying to inspire others to want to do a sort of a similar role and to be going into leadership as well.
The first word that comes to mind is revolution, or revolutionary.
Challenging.
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 Challenging, exciting,
Insightful.
Fun.
Fun?
Fun.
supportive,
Permission.
Rewarding.
Scary.
Amazing.
Eye-opening.
Eye-opening.
Life-changing.
Life-changing.
Inspiring.
And the last word would be, it's been an incredible gift.
I think it was the sardines. They're playing sardines, and Jeff and Gav were found in the office under the desk.
The funniest moment was when we were in the first King's Fund module. We were stood in a circle and we had to do non-verbal communication, and we had to nod at each other. And so if I nodded at you, you came towards me and we sort of crossed across this circle. And so everybody was looking out for each other to see if they're going to get the nod, and then once you got the nod, you cross over. And I'd got the nod, so I was walking over, and Toby, who was in charge of us, said, "Who hasn't been nodded at yet and who hasn't moved?" And I sort of raised my hand as I was walking along. I was obviously not listening to what he was saying, and everybody started to laugh, and I didn't get it until they said, "You've just moved," and I didn't know what he said because I wasn't listening. I was so focused on getting the nod right and getting over there that I just didn't think.
One of the funniest moments on the course has been in the costume department of Les Mis, and some of us were allowed to try on the costumes of the cast, and I'll never forget Claire Reese in bloomers. I've got a fantastic photograph.
After one of the academic modules, our cohort went to the theatre one evening, and with Ray, who you're going to film next, he just has the funniest laugh. It's an infectious laugh. So we were at the theatre, and the theatre was just so funny, and then Ray's laugh on top of it just made it even funnier. And the people in front of him were like, "Shh, shh, your laugh." It's just hilarious.
Darkest moment was definitely when we went to Warwick, and we were put into small groups which were called EBL groups, and we were put into groups of 5 or 6 with people that we didn't know. I had 3 people from my South cohort, and there was I think there was 4 other people, but they were from different cohorts, and we were asked to produce a presentation and a piece of written work on a topic that we could choose from a list. No, we were given the topic. And I found the group dynamics didn't work, and I found that I began to realise my impact on the group by just being me was actually upsetting the group, upsetting the people in the group, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong and how I could do things differently.
I think my darkest moment was possibly actually during one of the action learning sets, when I don't think any of us quite knew what happened, but there was a lot of difficult emotions suddenly came up, and I think lots of people in the room were feeling everything from sadness to anger and It just seemed to be this hotbed of really raw, really deep, really horrible emotions. And I remember us all sitting at lunch thinking, where did these come from? What are we going to do with them? And then we all went back into the room and they were still there and we all sat with them, and I just remember feeling totally lost. And we tried lightening the atmosphere and doing a game, a really silly game, but I think even with that it was really odd. I think they were just so intense, and I think they were probably there for so many different reasons that we couldn't quite shake them off.
I stood up in front of my cohort, there were only 20 of them, and I had to talk about leadership or my project or something that I wasn't on such strong territory, I was on new territory. And I couldn't do it. I was abysmal, absolutely abysmal. I hated it. I was in tears afterwards. You know, I had to think about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Why did that happen? And that was my worst moment. Really knocked my confidence.
I think my darkest moment was doing the final essay, and I basically didn't have that long due to a few other commitments to write the final essay, and perhaps could have done with a bit more time. But it got to the evening when it was supposed to be handed in, and I've been working on it for a good 3 days, full on, and it was quite a struggle, and that was probably quite a dark time. But the sort of silver lining of it was that a few of the other people from our cohort, we've sort of got a little group going, and they were all incredibly supportive in this Facebook group that we've got, and I think really felt that they were all there with me, offering support and encouragement, and actually I don't think I'd have been able to do it without them.
Probably the last assignment, the last assignment felt really hard, really draining, really tough.
I don't think there was one, really. I just found it all fascinating. It just, it was just gripping all the way through. Having said that, the first essay I sent in 5 hours before the midnight deadline, and the second essay went in 20 minutes before midnight, and the last one went in at 5 minutes before midnight, which was very odd. Having sworn after the first one, I'm not going to be doing this again, it got worse and not better.
Probably when my action learning set made me stand up in front of everyone and do a presentation about myself, which was my worst nightmare. But I did it.
I think my light bulb moment was on the first cohort, realising that I didn't have to pretend to be anyone different. I could just be me and actually come to the course just as me. And
one thing I found, I was so much more intelligent when these other people were around me. We were sparking each other off. So for all that I reflect, actually, I don't. By myself, I am just very limited in some respects, and the things I came out with surprised me. And it's because I was with this group of people.
Realising that everyone is different and they're not going to think and do things the same way as me, probably.
In the first module, I think, we talked about something called liminality, which is kind of a between place, and a place where you don't know where you are and you don't feel very sure about what you're doing or anything like that. And I remember somebody said, don't sort of strike out for the shore too early. And that really stuck with me, because I think that's often the situation you find where you're sort of thinking, what the hell's going on? And actually, don't try and get certainty too soon. Sometimes just be with that feeling of uncertainty and shifting and things like that, and things will calm. And I often think back to that now, so that feels like they're, you know, something that really, really kind of stuck with me.
I had a very important light bulb moment in my penultimate action learning set. And I can't share what happens in the action learning set. It's something that we keep within that group, but I was able to put an old demon to rest.
We were designing an exercise, and as E's, we very quickly came up with what we thought was a tremendous idea and ran off with it and went to make coffee, and realising that half of the group were I's and very detailed people and were very frustrated and stressed by excitable E's going off and having already planned something. So for me, that understanding of just actually how differently people approach everything in the workplace was a huge light bulb moment for me.
Leadership doesn't need to be hierarchical, doesn't need to have any seniority. And I remember one of my colleagues realising that and actually saying that's the first time they worked in a team where there wasn't an explicit leader telling everybody what to do. It was, we just worked together. And I think that brought everything together for me. That's what I would like to be as a leader.
One bit of advice would be to use the diary more that they give you, because looking back, so much happened, so many different things, and to try and capture it all. There's so much going on at the time that I think it's hard to find the time to sit down and put it all down.
Be brave, go for it. It's scary, but don't be scared because everybody else is in the same boat as you.
Don't underestimate the impact it's going to have on you.
I would just say be yourself, come along and be prepared to really engage with it, and be yourself and enjoy it, have fun.
Make sure you have the time to do it, be prepared to be challenged.
Take on as much as you can of what's available there, and you have to be prepared to work really hard. So I think you have to be able to expose yourself, but also to be prepared to do all the work around it to get the stuff that you can out of it. But I would unreservedly recommend it to people who wanted to kind of develop, you know, to develop into leadership roles.